Welcome to Casting Calls. Today's guest, hello, is Miss Jessica Fox-Thigpen. She is the casting director for Swamp Murders, Your Worst Nightmare, To Catch a Killer, Dead Silent, all things murder and mayhem, plus a lot of other projects. Welcome, Jessica. We're so glad you're here.
Hey, thank you.
How are you? So you're in Atlanta, right?
Yes.
So you're
Good
based
old
in
Atlanta.
good old Atlanta, exactly. Tell us about how you got into casting originally.
Long time ago, always was very fascinated with casting. And when I moved out to LA when I was a wee child of 18, one of my first jobs was as an assistant for a casting company. And at the time, my mentor was with his partner, and they did both film, television, and commercials. And then the only film that I did when they were together was Hoosiers, which dates me horribly. Non-credited, lowly assistant. But then they split, and then my mentor took the commercial side of it. So that's where I cut my teeth on, really, was all the commercials.
Wow. Do you still cast commercials at all?
From time to time, I have a couple of clients that'll call me up, always last minute. And usually it's not like a national commercial or anything like that. They're usually industrials or web-based or something like that. It's not my drive, but, I'm very fond of my clients, so I do help them when they ask.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I love about you is that your castings are always some of our most fun to tape at my taping studio because they're so creative, because someone's always being murdered or murdering someone or trying to solve the murder. So it's always
Or
really
crying
fun.
about the murder.
Or crying about the murder. It's so true. And so we're always trying to figure out the blocking and do these things, and it's actually a lot of fun for us. How did you get into all of these crime reenactment shows?
When I moved back to Atlanta, I wasn't focused on doing anything. I was just focused on raising one of my boys. And but then I was asked if I would take over casting for Crazy Legs Productions. And my first question was, well, how much work is it? And they're like, oh, it's easy. 2 weeks you work, 2 weeks you don't work, which has never, ever, ever been true. But I love it. So yeah, I took over all of their stuff. I'm not exclusive to them. I do have a lot of other clients, but they are by far my biggest client.
That's awesome. Well, you've been so great about casting so many talent from all over the Southeast, but particularly here in the Orlando area. And so my question to you is, what is it that makes an actor stand out to you when they're submitted to you? What is it that makes them stand out and you decide to invite them for an audition?
Boy, it seems like a simple question, but it's really not. I think just something about their performance has drawn me in. It's somebody who is very grounded and connected to the story and the character, and prepared. They're not just reading their script, but they're immersed into it. So then I get immersed into the performance. And a lot of times it's just this little tweak that they may give it that I wasn't expecting, but worked. So yeah, that's what draws me in.
You mentioned to me another time that we spoke that you actually keep a spreadsheet of kind of notes about performances that you've seen, about previous auditions. Can you tell the actors about that?
Yeah, it's not a spreadsheet. It's actually within Breakdown Services. And so I'm sure many, many, many other casting directors do the same. They just don't talk about it if they utilize it. But there's on the profile of each actor, we've got their photos, their reels, their resumes, and all that kind of stuff. But then there's this little box that you can click on that you write in notes. So for my company, what we do is we mark every time we book somebody, so I can go, oh yeah, they've already done the show, or we booked them in something else, so I must have liked them. We also put in, I'll request feedback from the directors or the showrunner, and I'll put that in there. That's not always as consistent as my own notes, but what is consistent is every audition that comes into me, whether it's taped or in person, there's a note. And that's the only way I can keep track of the tens of thousands of auditions that are in my system, that I can't remember everybody. So
sure. So it allows you to really keep track of that you've liked before with an actor, or conversely, if an actor wasn't prepared, for instance, and they wasted your time with this audition, you can note that, right?
yeah, or if they had an attitude, that goes in there, because I do get feedback from set, and I try to visit set at least once a block. And then the other thing is, like, if I see that somebody wasn't quite at the level for callbacks or consideration, maybe, I'll see a little note about that. But if I see they're improving, like if I look through and in the beginning maybe it said, really rough and green, needs training, but then I see an improvement, then I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. So then I'll keep considering them.
That's great. So you allow for growth, which is a really
absolutely. Yeah, and I rely on those notes. Like right now, I put a breakdown out on Monday, and submissions have come in, and I rely on my notes when I go through the submissions about who I want to have do the first round on tape.
Oh, that's great. Now you mentioned too, if poor behavior on set. So if someone's attitude or doesn't show up when they're supposed to, or isn't prepared, then you're going to note that so that you know better to hire them again. Correct? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because it's my reputation too, who I put on set. Sure. So I may find somebody who's a phenomenal talent, but if I get feedback that they have been rude to hair and makeup and to the PAs, and have said things that are inappropriate and made people uncomfortable, then that's going in there, because I don't want to put them back on set. Absolutely. And it has happened.
I would imagine one of the hard things for you casting directors these days is things are different than they used to be, because you don't have as much time in the room with an actor to get to know their personality. You're kind of getting to know us via tape. And so it must be challenging sometimes, because until that person's on set maybe, or possibly had an in-person callback with you, you're hoping, that you've assessed them correctly, but you really only know the role they auditioned for, not their personality.
Yeah, that's true. Now, because I've been here in Atlanta doing it for several years now, I've gotten to know a lot of talent, but there's new people constantly coming in. So that is a little bit of a scary thing of, okay, I only know you on tape, which is why if the role requires any kind of range, then I have to have them in person, or any significant role, I have to have them in person for the callbacks, or, via Skype or Zoom or something.
When you say in person, you mean a way that you can work with them virtually, because I know you do a lot of those. When Orlando doesn't have to drive to you for the callback, they come into our studio, they do a Skype session so that you can talk to them and see them and direct them, give them adjustments.
Right. And but sometimes we've had somebody who is amazing and awesome in their attitude towards us in callbacks, but then I hear they weren't so great on set. So it's still something I need to get that feedback from set, Yeah.
Now you mentioned newer actors. How can a newer actor get invited to read for a show like yours? What do you look for on the profiles that their agent submits through Breakdown Services? Do you look at what grabs you? Headshots, resume? What are you looking for exactly?
Well, the first thing when I get the submissions is the headshot. Because it's just the most visual, it's the most obvious thing right there. So I'll go through and I'll click on all of those. And then if I have too many, because I try to keep it, unless the role is just, I try to keep it around 30 per role. So if I've got let's say I've clicked on 70 people or something like that, or 100, then I'll start weeding it down. I'll go through my notes. I'll go through the resumes. I'll go through where they're located. And that does come into play, just because, especially for the smaller roles, the last thing that the AD or anybody on set wants to deal with is somebody saying, oh, I didn't understand the traffic coming into Atlanta, or I didn't, whatever it may be. It just could cause issues on set. But as far as the newer actors go, it depends. It's kind of hard for them if I've got a ton of really awesome, experienced people to choose from. But let's say it's a role where I'm not having, so I need to take kind of a gamble on somebody who's a newer talent. Or maybe I do have a lot of great people, but this person just really looked interesting or had something unique. Then that's another good way. But nothing can happen unless their agents submit them, because that's how I go with it.
Right. Do you look at their resumes for training, for instance, if they're new?
Training is a big deal. Yes, absolutely. It concerns me. And also when people come in live for callbacks, we have them bring in a headshot and resume. And I always look at the training. It's the first thing I go to is the training. And if somebody doesn't have training on there, I'm like, why? What is the deal? Do they think they're above training? And I understand that people have to take breaks sometimes financially for it, but I do expect everybody to have that momentum of training,
Yeah.
No one should ever stop training.
Yeah. I tell actors it's the gym for actors. A professional athlete doesn't make the national football team and say, oh, well, now I don't have to work out. No, you have to go to the gym to keep your muscles warm. And so I'm glad to hear you say that as well. I think it's important for them to hear it from different sources,
Yeah.
So what are some actor pet peeves that you have? Things that they drive you nuts because you see them over and over.
People aren't prepared. I think as you know, I give a lot more time than a lot of others. And so it's because I think I have a bigger hill to climb with some of the particular projects that I do. So, I'll give 5-6 days sometimes for taping, not always, but most of the time. And then maybe another 5 or 6 days goes by in between that and callbacks. And then I give them another same amount of time for the script for the callbacks. So by the time they're in callbacks, they've had the material for a long time. And I always try to give the full script when I can, so they can do character study and scene study and all of that. So to have somebody with the generous time that I've given not be prepared, I feel is kind of I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way quite a bit. Another one, Pantomime, hate it. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. So
yes, bringing up hello. Yes, I have a phone call here. But eating air.
Yeah, it's funny because you can really date the person, when they're doing this or this versus nowadays this.
Right. That's so true. I totally just dated myself.
But yeah, there's just no reason to pantomime, and it's not like you have to have a whole bag of props or something like that, but there's a lot of things that you can use that are everyday things. Your script, for example, can be a billion different things, but to have the empty hand, to me, takes me out of it. And I think it's harder for the actor to be as connected because they need that pressure, that feeling when they're holding something. I had an actor several years ago. He gave me a couple of toy plastic guns, very bright orange, fun. But I still use those because, especially with all the stuff that we've had. it's just better, I think, instead of somebody going like this, you know.
Totally agree. Well, for us to have something in our hands is always
Yeah.
easier to commit to living truthfully under those imaginary circumstances than trying
Yeah.
to pretend. Then, you know, it's really easy to take us out of it as well as the viewer out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I love that. Unprepared. That's, you know, a consistent thing that I hear among casting directors, because what can you do if we send you something that isn't fully prepared? There's not much you can do with it. How many actors do you normally pick for callbacks?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
How many actors do you normally pick for callbacks?
Oh, it ranges anywhere between 6 and 9 per role, I guess. If it's really slim and what I've got to choose from, we've had as little as 4, but usually 6 to 9 per role.
And who all weighs in? So you've got your director, and you obviously in callbacks, and do you also have a producer there from Crazy Legs?
Yes, we'll have on a big day, if everybody's available, we'll have the director, myself, the showrunner, the supervising producer, and the associate producer. Sometimes the associate producer isn't there, and sometimes the showrunner is coming and going. But there's always at least one producer at minimum, and then the director and I always.
Right. And does the director have final say normally in these projects? For if you all disagreed, who gets to decide ultimately who's getting?
They like to have it be a joint decision between myself and the director, and if he and I or she and I don't agree, then the showrunner's the tiebreaker.
That's great. It's great for the actors to hear. And I love this because your show is a little bit different. Your shows are sometimes a little bit different than some of the other episodics. Every kind of show has its own flavor and its own process. And so it's good for the actors to hear about the different processes with different casting directors and different productions. One question that keeps coming up, and I'm sure it will just because these are crazy times, you mentioned that you put out a breakdown on Monday. And so you'll be asking, I'm sure you'll be requesting tapes in the next few days from the agents, and those agents will be sending them on to their actors. Taping studios obviously aren't open right now in a lot of the areas. Like in Orlando, it's mandatory shutdown in Orange County until at least April 9th.
It's shut down here. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you will be loosening kind of the guidelines, because I know that every casting director out there prefers professional tapes. But under these extraordinary circumstances, can you reassure the actors that their tapes from home, as long as they're working really hard to get the right lighting and the right sound, will be okay for this particular time period?
Yeah, and for me, it's not going to be that much of a change because I've always been more lax when it comes to that. I'm totally fine if somebody does it on their cell phone or does it at home, as long as I can see them clearly and I can hear them clearly. I don't want to see the shadow of the ceiling fan going across their face, and I don't want to have a blurred image or anything like that, which I've had all of those things. So I'm totally fine with home taping. And one thing that I've been considering is once I do release the request for EcoCast, which I'm thinking it might be Monday. I still need to create the slides. I'm a little behind. And I'm releasing another breakdown, hopefully by Friday for another episode. But I was thinking about doing some kind of Zoom meeting for all of those I've requested. I don't know how many people I can do at one time or not, or some sort of medium where I can answer questions. You know, whether it be character questions, script questions, or taping questions. But yeah, there's a lot of forgiveness when it comes to the taping. You know, my focus is how well they've have dived into the character and made it themselves, you know.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to know right now. I'm conducting my acting classes virtually right now, of course, and I had my actors actually do self-tapes this week and send them in for critiques, and we were talking about it last night, and they were like, we hate this. We never want to tape ourselves. This is not fun. Because they had non-actors reading with them, you know, because they're at home with their mom.
Yeah.
It was so funny. We had the best time, though, laughing and watching those, actually.
Well, they should be prepared because from what I've heard from many different sources, since everybody's been going through this, more and more people are going to go to self-tape because they're going to find that they can see a lot more people, and there's just an ease with that, for at least for first round. I don't know about callbacks, but for me, I'm sticking with my prompt, with my process, and having live callbacks. Now, during this whole shutdown, when it gets time to that, we may end up having to do everybody via Zoom or Skype or something like that, but it'll still be live. But another thing with the self-taping that you brought up is to make sure that they do have a reader. Talk about pet peeve, and that is somebody who's self-recorded their voice, or they don't even have a voice and they're just saying their lines, because I don't care how wonderful of an actor you think you are, nobody is connected and invested in the character when they know already what they're going to say and they're just waiting for the moment to say it. It's a response reaction medium. So there has to be somebody on the other end. I know that sometimes that's hard, and especially now with the shutdown, and people can't have that. So I think the closest you can do to capturing that is to maybe have somebody who's zooming in with you at the same time. And like you and I, let's say I had to do a scene right now and you'd be reading the other part, and then the camera would be on me, but I'm responding and reacting off of you. So that's going to be really important.
Yes, I totally agree. What are some shows that you like to watch on TV?
Oh, well, we just binged the entire 3rd season of Ozark.
Ah, yes. Great
Oh my
show.
God. Yeah, I won't say anything because I don't know who's watched it or who hasn't, but wow. I mean, it was really good. Oh my goodness. Always love Homeland. What was that? Oh, we started watching Castle Rock.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we watched the 1st season. Really, really good. 2nd season, we're just starting.
So it sounds like you like gritty dramas, although Ozark's got some quirk in it.
Figure. But I also like Brockmire.
Yeah.
You know, so there's yeah, we like a whole range of stuff: thriller, horror, drama, comedy. You know,
Love it. I've been watching a lot of My 600-Pound Life during quarantine. I don't know what that says about me, other than the fact that I don't know, I'm just watching this and eating. It makes me hungry too, which I don't feel like is the effect it's supposed
to. My client, Crazy Legs, you know, they produce Life by the Ton and Family by the Ton, and
I didn't know that. I'll have to watch those.
Oh shoot! Oh, I'm a bad client. I can't remember the other ones, but they have. I think it's on TLC.
Yeah, that's what I watch. All those TLC documentaries, Hoarders,
yeah.
And I love those shows. Yeah, I think it's because I love to watch people, like the psychology of humans, which is what relates to actors. So I love to watch. I don't like scripted fake reality shows, but I love documentaries.
Yeah.
Watching real people.
We watched Love Is Blind.
Yes.
It's fascinating because I liked it because it wasn't trying to get people to do things that are crazy or dramatic just for the ratings. It was they set people up for success as best they could. Excuse me. So yeah, that was a fascinating show in psychology too.
I thought so too, for sure. And a couple of the couples are still together a year and a half later. Yeah. So it's a pretty good experiment.
Mm-hmm.
So last question, what would you be if you weren't a casting director? What job would you do if you weren't a casting director?
I think we've talked about this before. I mean, I love, I considered law. My son is a lawyer. Well, he's not practicing, but he had his law degree. He works for the government now, but, so that's one thing, but also I always thought it'd be fun to be like a secret agent, spy or something, you know, some kind of investigator. Yeah.
I think you'd be a kick-ass spy for what it's worth.
So, yeah, I just need to learn some martial arts or something.
Exactly. Something to make you just dangerous there.
Yeah. There you go.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. And
Sure.
I especially want to thank you for seeing all of the Orlando actors, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You guys have some great, great talent.
Thank you. ClassAct especially really appreciates you, because I don't think you've had an episode of your shows that we haven't seen ClassAct actors in, and that makes me so happy every time.
Oh.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope you and your family stay safe, and I will
You
definitely
too.
look forward to seeing
You
you when
too.
this is all over in person.
Absolutely.